Good evening. Welcome to the Big Story. I'm Regina Lay.
I'm Gretchen Ho.
And I'm Tulfo.
Tonight's big stories: re-electionists and returnees from 5 different political parties bannered the administration's full senatorial ticket, but one person was conspicuously absent during the big announcement.
The Makabayan bloc goes the other way and fields alternative candidates. It also says it's already drafting impeachment complaints against Vice President Sara Duterte.
And House Speaker Martin Romualdez revealed that some lawmakers had wanted a zero budget for the office of the Vice President over her boycott of the plenary debates, but he rejected the move.
President Bongbong Marcos has unveiled the administration's 12 senatorial candidates for the 2025 midterm polls a week before COMELEC opens the filing of candidacies for next year.
Marcos himself made the announcement at the glitzy event organized by the newly formed political coalition Alianza para sa Bagong Pilipinas earlier today.
Now, the 12 senatorial candidates feature a mix of re-electionists, current cabinet members, and former senators. But one person was conspicuously missing. Maricel Halili has the big story tonight.
The 12 senatorial candidates representing the administration for the 2025 midterm elections have been named. President Bongbong Marcos himself introduced them. Among them are 2 of Marcos's opponents from the 2022 presidential elections, namely former Senators Manny Pacquiao and Ping Lacson. Even the running mate of Lacson back then, former Senate President Tito Soto, is included. Also part of the administration's senatorial lineup are several members of Congress, including Las Piñas Representative Camille Villar and ACT-CIS party list Representative Erwin Tulfo, who has been topping several senatorial surveys. Also gunning for a seat in the upper chamber are Makati Mayor Abby Binay and DILG Secretary Benher Abalos. In addition to them, the administration is also fielding several re-electionist senators like Senators Pia Cayetano, Lito Lapid, Bong Revilla, Francis Tolentino, and presidential sister Amy Marcos. Those candidates come from 5 political parties that signed a manifesto to form a single coalition, the Alliance for the New Philippines, led by President Marcos.
Ang sabi nila, ang halalan daw ay panahon ng pagkakabitak-bitak, pagsisiraan, pagkakahati-hati. Subalit kabaliktaran po ang inululunsad ng ating alyansa. Sapagkat ito ay isang kilusambayan na magbubuklod sa pinakamalawak na puwersa ng mga nagmamahal sa inang bayan.
It was quite noticeable that among the 12 senatorial candidates, Marcos's sister, Senator Amy, was the only one missing in action. The president joked.
Mga kababayan, kasama din po natin si Senator Amy Marcos na naunahan na ang mga ibang senador at busy na nagkakampanya at hindi makarating ngayong araw na ito.
Recall that just recently, Vice President Sara Duterte said that among the Marcos siblings, Senator Amy was the only one who has been her friend since 2012. Some people were also surprised to see the Binay and Cayetano names in one coalition. The 2 families have butted heads in recent months due to dispute in the transfer of the Ambo barangays from the Binays in Makati to the Cayetanos in Taguig, which famously culminated in a verbal spat in Senate between Senators Nancy Binay and Alan Peter Cayetano. But Mayor Abby says it's no issue for her.
I agree to join the alliance because of the president. Sino naman ako para magsabi kung sino yung gusto kong makasama at hindi makasama? Diba?
In all, the candidates come from 5 different political parties and unity remains the battle cry.
Palagay ko naman na a unified approach for a better government or for a better future for the country is in the offing. Obviously, makakatulong na maganda.
As of now, Malacanang has not yet announced who will replace Abalos as DILG secretary once he resigns from the cabinet to file his certificate of candidacy.
Probably I only have about 1 week or 1.5 weeks or 2 weeks at the most. But after this, i-wrap up ko na lang yung mga trabaho sa DILG. But siguro mas paano naman, si Alice Goo nahuli natin, si Pastor Kibuloy nahuli natin, si Chody Mejia, yung sex predator nahuli natin, yung kay Teves, siya ay nasa Timor-Leste, legal na lang ito at maibabalik na po yan, may demanda siya, check na rin yan. Si Bantag ay yun na lang po ang pagkakaalam ko ay medyo maganda ang development.
For News 5, Maricel Halili, We Are One News.
Outside of the administration ticket, many more are expected to throw their hats into the ring. Those who already have include broadcaster Ben Tulfo, running as an independent. In Octa Research's most recent senatorial preference survey, Ben placed second to his brother Erwin Tulfo, who topped the poll and is part of the Bagong Pilipinas slate. If both Ben and Erwin win, there will be 3 Tulfos in the Senate, the first one to secure a seat being incumbent Senator Raffy Tulfo. On the other side, the Makabayan bloc is one name short of a full senatorial slate. Already on the ticket are current Congresswomen Franz Castro and Arlene Brosas, alongside former Representative and Makabayan bloc Chair Teddy Casiño. Casiño says they're fielding 11 candidates that come from various grassroots sectors, including health, agriculture, and labor, as they believe voters want alternative candidates.
Baka naman ng mga botante hindi na lang iniisip yung kung ano yung makukuha niya. I think yung naging leksyon dito sa Duterte at Marcos, tumitimo yan kahit paano sa ating tao. And I think the time is ripe for an alternative kind of politics, a politics of ideologies and principles. And ang ginawa talaga namin consciously is we chose candidates that came from the grassroots.
Well, it's been a big week for elections, so let's do a quick recap of the other parties who announced candidates in the past 7 days. Senator Bong Revilla Jr. was the sole candidate announced by Lakas CMD on Friday during their national convention. The party's president is House Speaker Martin Romualdez, who says more than a third of the lower chamber is now with them. Lakas, in turn, is of course part of the president's Alyansa para sa Bagong Pilipinas. Now, also on Friday, the once ruling PDP-Laban officially nominated Senators Bongo and Bato de la Rosa as their senatorial candidates, alongside actor Philip Salvador. They held their National Assembly in Davao City, which was attended by former President Rodrigo Duterte. PDP also nominated Senator Robin Hood Padilla as a campaign manager of the senatorial candidates. And finally, the Liberal Party has also announced the candidacy of its chairman, former Senator Kiko Pangilinan, who will gun for a seat in the Senate once more. LP sectoral wing, the Mamamayang Liberal Party list, will field former Senator Laila de Lima and former Congressman Teddy Bagilat and former Congressman Erin Tanyada. LP also announced the mayoral run of former Vice President Leni Robredo in Naga City.
Now joining us tonight to talk about these developments is resident political pundit Ronald Llamas. Ronald is the former political advisor of the late President Noynoy Aquino. Good to have you again, Ronald, from Storycon now to the big story.
Good evening, Gretchen, Pauline, Regina. Nice to see you again.
Okay, Ronald, napakalaki ng ngiti natin. Kanina kinakausap kita, congratulating you with the recent development that happened last night with Akbayan Party taking the congressional seat of Anwaray. Can you enlighten us what exactly happened there? Paano napunta sa Akbayan yun? At sino nga ba si Percival Sendanya?
Well, meron kasing nakapasok sa party list na 56 political parties. Doon sa 56 na yan, may ilang mga parties ang nakakaso ng disqualification. Halimbawa, merong senior citizen na nakakaso sa Supreme Court, meron pang magsasaka party list yata na nakakaso pa ron. Tapos yung ikatlo, yung Anwaray. Mukhang yung Anwaray na decision na with finality ng Supreme Court na siya ay disqualified. So yung number 57 ay aakyat, papasok doon sa mga partido na makakasama sa mga winning party list parties. Kung sakaling in the future, magkaroon din ng decision with finality yung Supreme Court doon sa ilang nakakaso pa sa kanila, baka may mga pumasok pa rin doon sa party list victors. So ganun yung mangyayari. Si Percy Sendanya ay dating presidente ng UP Student Council. Siya yung first openly gay president ng UP Student Council. At isa siya sa mga leaders ng akbayan dun sa kanyang LGBTQI collective at nangunguna sa mga advocacies hindi lang dun sa mga usual na progressive programs ng akbayan, kung hindi primarily dun sa mga rights ng mga gay and lesbians, yung LGBTQI sector. So ito yung aming since 98, ito yung first time na nagkaroon kami ng representative sa Congress na galing talaga dun sa LGBTQI sector.
How did you come upon the decision to have him represent the party list? Bakit hindi po kayo? Bakit hindi si Rafaela David? At ano ang binabalak po ninyo because we have only a year left until the midterm elections?
Well, I was the founding president of Akbayan. I was the party president for more than 14 years. Pero Gretchen, di kasi ako interesado sa Kongreso or sa Senado. Kaya mas interesado ako tumulong sa kampanya. So sa partido naman may iba't ibang klase ka na mga miyembro. May mga miyembro ka na mas magaling bilang representatibo sa Kongreso, meron kang miyembro na mas magaling representatibo sa Senado, meron kang mga miyembro na baka mas maganda na maging, anong tawag mo kanina? Resident political pundit. So, ganoon na lang. No? Doon na lang tayo.
He wouldn't have time anymore for us.
Resident political. You're everyone's resident political pundit now.
Kaya nga,
You started with us, tas ngayon, everyone wants a piece of you.
Hindi naman. Marami pa rin nag-reject sa akin.
Ronald, let's talk about today's event. We were just saying that, of course, 12 of the administration senatorial slate, full slate pala, but Senator Amy was not there. Did you think that was did you think there was something off with that?
Well, una, itong slate na ito, nilabas ni Amy last August. Medyo dinenay lang ng Malacanang na final yung nilabas ni Amy. Ang sinasabi lang nila, work in progress. So, medyo hindi bago itong slate na ito. Ngayon, medyo final na at medyo formal na yung slate na ito. Yung absence ni Senator Amy Marcos is not surprising. Dahil for the past 2 years, ay mas ang itsura ni Senator Amy is more opposition than administration. At siya mismo, ang sabi niya, ay kahit mag-isa na lang siya, hindi niya iiwanan si Vice President Sara Duterte at si ex-President Digong. No? Siya na mismo nagsabi niyan. Kaya ngayon, nawasak na yung unity team at malinaw na yung mga Duterte ang opposition. Tingin ko at this point ay kahit na sa administration slate si Amy, hindi naman ako naniniwala dun sa half joke ni President Bongbong na wala siya dyan dahil nauna na siyang nangangampanya. Tingin ko yung kanyang absence dyan is pregnant with meaning. At the very least, tingin ko si Senator Amy ay namamangka sa dalawang ilog. Namamangka siya sa administrasyon at namamangka rin siya sa Duterte. Sa administrasyon, mahalaga na nandun siya para mas tumaas yung chance niya na manalo. Pag ikaw kasi nasa administration slate during a midterm election, nadadagdagan ka ng chances at the very least 15 to 20% chance na manalo. Pero at the same time, malinaw naman yung kanyang political friendships with the Duterte. Kaya yun yung kanyang sitwasyon. Medyo delikado yan for Senator Amy. Dahil pag namamangka ka sa maraming ilog, baka lumubog yung bangka mo.
Yeah.
Yun yung danger na kinakaharap niya.
What do you
Baka
mean by
ilaglag ka
that
ng
in this
pareho.
context? I mean, she is a Marcos. Paano lulubog yung bangka niya?
Well, Marcos ka, pero bumabanat ka sa iyong kapatid, bumabanat ka sa administrasyon, bumabanat ka sa speaker, bumabanat ka sa first lady, yung mga yan ang magpapatakbo ng makinarya. Yung mga yan ang magpapatakbo ng kampanya. Kaya hindi ka nakakasigurado kung halimbawa, usually yan, sa dulo, nakalagay ka ba sa sample ballot? No? Baka manganib ka ron. Nangyayari kasi yan yung laglagan. No? Naglalaglagan naman talaga yung mga koalisyon Kaya hindi malayo na kung ikaw ay patuloy na babanat dun sa slate na kasama ka, dun sa administrasyon na kasama ka, delikado ka.
Yeah. Don't you
In a
think...
way, si Mayor Baste, si Panelo, na nandun sa Duterte camp, bumabanat din sa kanya. Kine-question din yung kanyang loyalty.
Yeah.
Yun yung sinasabi ko na delikado. Kung questionin nung sinasamahan mo na dalawang ilog, yung iyong loyalty. Saan ka ba talaga loyal?
Don't you think that this might hurt her image with the Duterte supporters? Kasi just 2 days ago, si Vice President Sara Duterte was saying that hindi naman sila friends ni President Marcos. Ang friend lang naman talaga niya since 2012 was Senator Amy. And 2 days later or 3 days later, here she is on the administration ticket, right? So, do you think this might hurt her image with the Duterte supporters?
Exactly. At syempre, nandun ka sa administration slate, tapos mortal na kaaway ng mga Duterte yung administrasyon. So yung mga botante, yung mga loyalist ng mga Duterte, magdadalawa o tatlong isip kung nasaan ka ba talaga. Ganon din naman yung mga nasa administration slate. Dahil patuloy kang nakadikit doon sa kanilang mortal na kaaway, tapos nandun ka sa slate nila, no? Ay medyo maapektuhan kanyan. As can be seen in previous elections, maapektuhan kanyan doon sa administration slate. Lalo na kung hindi ka naman nasa top 6. Kung nandun ka sa last 6. Yung last 6 kasi sa survey, yun yung usually naapektuhan, yung pwede pang matalo. At sa mga surveys na nakita ko, wala naman sa top 6 si Amy.
Okay, let's go to some members of the senatorial slate of the alliance. For example, Francis Tolentino, galing siya sa PDP-Laban at lumipat siya dito sa PFP. Kanina nakikinig kasi ako sabi nyo tinanggal siya, pero sa mga press release umalis siya because of misalignments when it comes to the West Philippine Sea. What did you hear about that?
Well, ang tingin ko ay whether siya ay umalis o tinanggal, nagsimula na yung differences niya last year doon sa kanyang partido, yung PDP-Laban ng mga Duterte. Especially dito sa usapin ng West Philippine Sea, hindi naman kaila sa atin na very pro-China yung mga Duterte. At si Francis Tolentino last year nagsimulang maging critical sa China, lalo na sa aggression nila sa West Philippine Sea. Pero dumistansya rin siya dun sa tokhang ng Duterte administration. No? Inamin niya na may mga violations din ng human rights na nangyari. So, nagsisimula na siyang kumalas at na-formalize yan early this year. No, doon sa Cebu Assembly ng PDP-Laban. No? Kaya, yun yung naging problema ni Francis. Ang problema ni Francis, medyo sa survey, ay hindi siya pasok sa 12. At least in some surveys. In some surveys, pasok siya, nasa bingit, pero in other surveys, nasa labas siya. So, ang tingin ko ay very pragmatic din yung kanyang desisyon na sumama sa administrasyon. Mas may chance siya ngayon na pumasok sa Magic 12 dahil kasama siya sa administration slate. So, medyo may pragmatic consideration din si Francis Tolentino.
Inasahan niyo po ba si Senator Tito Soto at saka si Senator Ping Lacson na dito sila sumama sa administration ticket?
Was that pragmatic then? Was that a pragmatic decision?
Well, partly, pero partly rin naman kasi merong mga policy decisions ngayon yung Marcos government na sinasang-ayunan din nila. Halimbawa, yung anti-tokhang position ni Senator Ping Lacson. Dati pa yan eh. Ang tingin ni Senator Ping Lacson, medyo mali yung anti-crime, anti-drug strategy ng mga Duterte. Dahil ang tinutumbok nila is the demand side. Ang mga sinusupil nila ay yung gumagamit rather than yung source ng drugs. Kaya dito sa pagbabago ng anti-drug, anti-crime policy ng mga Marcoses, medyo sang-ayon naman dyan si Senator Ping Lacson. Yung sa West Philippine Sea, sang-ayon din dyan si Senator Ping Lacson. Paano si Senator Ping Lacson? Kahit saan yan tumakbo, mananalo yan eh. In the past kasi, laging tumatakbo siya as independent, lagi naman siyang panalo. Kaya hindi lang siya usapin ng pragmatism dahil malaki naman yung chance na manalo siya kahit saan siya tumakbo or kahit siya ay mag-independent. So, ang nakikita ko rito, meron siyang mga sinusuportahan ng mga polisiya, ng administrasyon, kumpara sa polisiya ng mga Duterte.
Ronald, what should we make of the possibility of 3 Tulfos in Senate? Of course, Senator Raffy is already there. Tapos si Ben and Erwin are a part of the admin slate. Tapos they're also topping the senatorial preference surveys, right?
Yes.
What would happen if there were 3 of them there?
Well, una, it will be the first time na mangyayari yan sa ating kasaysayan. 3 magkakapatid ang magsasama-sama sa Senado. Ikalawa ay going into 2028, ano ba yung plano ng 3? Meron ba sa kanilang tatakbo for a higher position? Kung sakaling mananalo si Erwin Tulfo at saka si Ben Tulfo, kahit tumakbo sila sa 2028, manalo o almawa kung sila ay kahit sila ay matalo, ay mananatili pa rin silang senador until 2031, no? 2031. Mananatili pa rin silang senador. Ngayon ay kaya meron silang desisyon na kinakailangan gawin going into 2028. Dahil sa ngayon ay sila yung mataas ang political acceptability at sila yung pinakamataas ang political traction. So it's not just about the midterm in 2025. It's also about beyond the midterm sa 2028. Ano ba ang kanilang plano? Pero ito yung first time na 3 Tulfo ang malalagay sa Senado. Huwag niyong kalimutan, si Senator Raffy Tulfo, nanalo rin siya as an independent. So malaki ang chance na kahit wala sa administrasyon si Ben Tulfo, siya ay manalo rin.
Son of Marawi. Ben Tulfo.
Yes.
Okay, Ronald, how about the Dutertes? I mean, do we still see them running for a seat in the Senate? Because it was back in June, when Vice President Sara Duterte said that her father, the former president, as well as her brothers, are raring to run for the Senate. So do we still see that happening? Should we be watching out for that in next year's midterm elections?
Nung sinabi ni Sara yon ay ang sinabi ko ay malamang hindi yun mangyari. Una ay hindi iiwanan ng mga Duterte yung kanilang bailiwick sa Davao. No, hindi nila iiwanan yan. So, at the very least ay merong isang Duterte na may iwan diyan sa Davao. Ikalawa, yung mga Duterte ay medyo bumababa sa surveys. Halimbawa, mismo si Digong ay nagna-number 11 ngayon sa surveys. No? At yung dalawang Duterte, si Baste at saka si Pulong, ay malayo dun sa Magic 12. No? So, hindi ko nakikita na yung sinabi ni Vice President Sara Duterte na 3 Tulfo ang tatakbo sa Senate ay mangyayari. Baka isa. Pero
You mean 3
definitely,
Duterte, not Tulfo?
Yeah. Baka isang Duterte tatakbo. Even that, hindi pa sila sigurado. Dahil hindi nga nagre-rate ng mataas yung mga Duterte sa Senado. At least sa mga surveys. No? Kaya tingin ko ito lang yung estilo ng mga Duterte. yung tinatawag kong method in the madness. Pag sila ay nako-corner, sila ay defensive, sila ay nakasandal sa pader, minabago nila yung narrative. Yun yung ginawa ni Vice President Sara nung sinabi niya na 3 Duterte ang tatakbo kahit alam ni Sara na hindi mangyayari yon. No?
Well,
Para pag-usapan.
Ronald,
Mas ganun yung kanyang agenda.
we can talk all night about this. Madami pa kaming tanong, but we have the next months to talk to you about it. But for the meantime, thank you so much for talking to us tonight. Our resident political pundit, former presidential advisor for political affairs, Ronald Llamas.
We're going to pause for a quick break, but up next, the House of Representatives has approved on third and final reading the proposed 6.352 trillion peso national budget for 2025. We'll discuss that and more when the big story returns. Stay with us.
Welcome back. You are watching the big story here on One News.
Now, as promised, the House of Representatives has passed on third and final reading the proposed 6.352 trillion peso national budget for next year.
House Bill number 10800, the General Appropriations Bill for fiscal year 2025, is hereby approved on third and final reading. Congratulations.
Since she did not show up to defend her budget, Vice President Sara Duterte's allocation for next year was retained at 733 million pesos, the amount that the Appropriations Panel had recommended. In a statement, House Speaker Martin Romualdez said in Filipino, and let me translate, "As Speaker, I understand the sentiments of some of my colleagues in Congress regarding Vice President Sara Duterte's absence from the plenary deliberations on her office's budget. She was invited 3 times, but she did not attend." He went on to say some members of Congress have suggested further reducing the budget of the OVP, with others proposing to give it zero funding due to her absence. However, I rejected these proposals. I understand the frustrations, but I believe it's important for the Office of the Vice President to have a sufficient budget to continue serving our constituents. If we eliminate the funding, the citizens will also suffer, especially those who rely on the services of the office. According to Romualdez, he consulted several House leaders from different parties about the issue, and they eventually decided to stick to the 733 million peso figure, which is in line with what former Vice President Leni Robredo had gotten. The lower house is now on recess until November, and it's now the Senate's turn to deliberate the budget. Before the General Appropriations Bill was transmitted to the Senate, Romualdez also thanked House members for their work.
We adjourned the session in high spirits. We have demonstrated once again our legislative efficiency with a succession of significant laws. Dahil sa ipinakita ninyong kasipagan at dedikasyon sa trabaho, ipinaabot ko po ang taos-pusong pasalamat sa inyong lahat.
Still, the Makabayan bloc isn't letting the issue go. Party chair and senatorial aspirant Teddy Casiño says they're already working on the draft for an impeachment complaint against Vice President Sara Duterte.
Yung iba't ibang mga people's organizations under Bayan are now studying the possibility of filing an impeachment complaint, and the drafting of the complaint has started. Of course, naka-break na ang Kongreso, so most likely, if ever that will be filed, makapag-resume na yan around November. But we understand may ibang groups din na nag-draft na ng kanilang complaint. So, there might even be multiple complaints.
It's certainly been a busy day, busy week, I should say, for the lower house. Let's try to get more updates. Joining us tonight, we have via Zoom House Deputy Majority Leader, Congressman Tulfo. Congressman Tulfo, thanks so much for taking time for us. I know you're very busy tonight.
Yeah, thank you, ladies, Gretchen, Regina, and Pauline for inviting me in your program. Salamat po.
Lots to talk about, Congressman Tulfo. First off, congratulations on being part of the administration's senatorial slate for next year. We heard that the president called you just last week. What was that conversation like?
Well, he invited me, asked me actually if I wanted to join the administration senatorial lineup. And I said baka gusto mo kaming tulungan, tulad sa DSWD, So di naman ako nakatanggi. I said, yes, Mr. President, I will.
So, Kong Tulfo, you were okay to leave the House already. Now you're moving to the Senate.
Yes, because I was invited by the President and sabi niya na pwede silang tulungan, particularly sa Senate. So I said, okay, Mr. President, I accepted the invitation.
There is now a very real possibility that there will be three of you brothers in the Senate because, of course, Senator Raffy is there. Tapos you and Ben have been topping the senatorial preference surveys by various groups. What do you think the dynamic would be like if it ends up that there are three of you in the Senate?
Well, asahan na people what we usually do. Of course, yung ginagawa namin, helping the needy ones, yun ang magiging mga batas kasi nag-usap nga kami ni Tol Raffy. Napag-usapan din namin ni Tol Ben noon pa. He was saying, yun naman talaga ang focus lagi ng family namin is public service. Hindi namin nakakalimutan. First and foremost, serve the public. So I guess doon din tatakbo yun. Pero for me, sinabihan din kami ng Pangulo, lahat kami na 12 candidates na to focus, ganun pa rin sa poverty alleviation kung po pwede, the laws that we will be filing or the bills na dapat nakasentro sa poverty alleviation, economic growth, and much more.
Kong Erwin, who are you closer to between Ben and Senator Raffy?
Magkasunod kami kasi ni Senator Raffy, so I'm closer with Senator Raffy. He is 3 years older than I am.
Hindi naman po kayo nag-aaway-away. There's no disagreements, usually.
Well, pag siblings, of course, may mga discussions. We were trained, we were disciplined by our father na always obey first yung mga mas matanda sa'yo. You do not disagree in front of him. You go to, parang may chain of command sa amin. You go to the mom, kung hindi ma-resolve ng mom, or elder brother mo na Mon. Kung hindi kaya resolve ni Mon, to the mom, and kung hindi kaya yung mom, to my dad. So yung pinaka parang Supreme Court namin is our dad.
Si Ben Tulfo, bakit po nag-independent na anyayahan din po siya ng presidente kaya na sumama dito sa administration ticket? Or is that strategic discussion on amongst you three?
I don't know. Hindi naman pinag-usapan yan. Actually, siya was kind of like last month pa. He was already very willing to run run sa Senate. Ako naman, I was happy with what I'm doing in Congress, being the Deputy Majority Leader for Communications. Okay na sa akin yun until I was invited last week with the President and asked if I want to join the administration lineup.
Okay, Kong Erwin, you and your brother Ben have been topping a lot of senatorial surveys. How big of a factor was this po in your decision to finally decide to run for Senate?
Actually, sa akin, no eh. It's more, it's kind of scary nga because it's like a challenge. People are really rooting for you, di ba? And they're banking on you. So, next thing, if you will take this challenge, kagaya right now, I did join the administration slate, tapos number 1 ka. So people are expecting na you will do something dahil iboboto kanila, ay gusto kanila maging senator. So the next move now is it's on you, di ba? Na you have to do what you're expected to do. Binoto ka namin, so we're expecting na you will work for us, you will do something for us. So it's really a challenge rather than maging complacent tayo. So kailangan ipakita mo, panindigan mo yun, gusto ka ng mga tao. So gawin mo yung gusto nila na whatever it is na they want you to be their representative in the Senate.
Well, talking about the work that you've been doing, you guys have been busy discussing the budget, but I want to know your stance on specifically the impeachment complaint being drafted now by Bayan against the Vice President. Do you think that the failure to explain where the confidential funds went merits an impeachment complaint?
It is their right, Gretchen, to file this impeachment complaint, the opposition. Na-expect na namin they will do that. Pero the problem now will be, or the question now is, may form ba and substance ba yan? Lulusot ba yan sa... Kasi ang Secretary General namin ang tatanggap dyan, then titignan yan, hihimayin ng Committee on Justice namin. So may proseso pa, medyo mahaba-habang proseso. Doon pa lang kaagad sa meron bang form and substance para ituloy yan, para magtungo yan sa plenaryo, I don't know. So pag-uusapan yan ng Committee on Justice. Pero may karapatan naman kahit sino, Gretchen, na mag-file kung anong nakikita nila. Kaya kami magfa-file nitong impeachment because hindi siya sumipot, hindi niya sinagot. Yung mga questions ng Congress, how did she spend the budget? Well, nasa sa kanila yon. Yung nga lang, yung proving it, ika nga, yun yung mahirap doon. How will you prove that? Or meron bang yung impeachment na ifa-file ng bayan muna, may laman ba, ika nga, kakatigan ba ng Committee on Justice ng Congress?
Well, do you agree that it is a betrayal of public trust? Her failure to attend when she was invited 3 times, committee level, dito sa plenary, yung hindi po siya sumipot, sapat ba na sinasabi niya this is an orchestrated political attack against her? Or what did you feel? I mean, her failure, her office's failure to be there during those debates.
Majority ng Congress, when she did that, lalo na yung last one na hearing, then she stood up and she refused to take an oath. Karamihan or majority ng mga congressmen and women were frustrated and were kind of upset. Parang nabastos daw yung Kongreso. So, yung sa impeachment naman, I believe I will just leave that to the Committee on Justice. Ayaw ko naman silang pangunahan. Pero in reality, medyo maraming nagalit. Maraming congressman ang nainis dahil parang nainsulto nga raw sila. Parang she's taking exception na I will not do that. I will not take an oath. Pero meron kasi kahit yung mga si Pinoy dati, took an oath doon sa Dengbaksya investigation. Ganon din si Pangulong Ramos in the 90s, yung tungkol dyan sa Manila Bay Area, yung tinatawag na yung reclamation. And then si Erap Estrada also took an oath when he faced the Senate.
Well, I mean, so a lot of congressmen got angry because of that. But were there impeachment talks to begin with? Because that's what the vice president was alleging, right? She's always said now all of these hearings are just part of a coordinated political attack against her to take her down, that you guys are reading from a script now, that there is a narrative that you're following, etc., etc. So is there merit to what she's saying?
I'm not a lawyer, actually. Pero looking at it right now, yung Committee on Justice will be the one to decide kung meron bang form substance, meron bang culpable violation of the Constitution. Kasi kung titignan mo, yung ginawa niya na hindi siya nag-take an oath, is it culpable violation of the Constitution? Pero may mga nagsasabi kasi kami mga kasama na, paano naman ito kung during breaks na nag-uusap ang mga congressman, why can't she explain saan napunta yung 125 million na intelligence fund? Yun ang dapat niyang sagutin. Hindi na pa naman niya nasasagot. So I don't know really dito sa Committee on Justice namin kung doon nila titignan yun na how did you spend this? Medyo mabigat yun na hindi mo masagot kung saan mo ginasta yung pondo mo. Pero others are saying na yung merely dahil hindi ka nag-oath, dahil binastos mo ang Congress, I don't think so. Pero pagdating dun sa spending yung budget mo and then you cannot explain it, then again, that's a different story. Pero that's I will leave that to our Committee on Justice to decide, ladies.
Kong Erwin, I meant, is it true that there were always impeachment talks against her? That this is part of
May ilan, to be honest with you, to be frank with you. After that incident, yung ayaw niyang mag-take ng oath. There were some, pero hindi siya as a whole na tingin ng mga tao na pinagkakaisahan na siya ng mga party leaders. I really don't know kasi when the speaker met with, usually mga ganyan desisyon, lahat ng party leaders pinupulong muna ni Speaker Romualdez. Tulad nung kay Teves, there was a meeting. I was there. I attended that meeting. Pero itong meeting recently by the Speaker with the party leaders, yung pinag-usapan lang nila yung budget, kung zero ba or ibibigay ba. And karamihan nagsabi na bawasan, pero the Speaker said like, no, ibigay na lang natin, sundan na lang natin yung binigay ng Congress kay former Vice President Leni Robredo. Tapos yung mga hinihingi niya na extras about social services, pwede niyang ihingi sa DSWD, sa Department of Health.
So there were impeachment talks after she refused to take the oath, but before that, were there talks? Because she's been alleging this for months.
Not that I know of. Pag sa mga break, usually na pag-uusapan, nag-meet kami doon sa North Lounge or South Lounge. Pag mga break, nagko-coffee, may merienda. Hindi na pag-uusapan yan eh. Pero itong yung araw na hindi niya nasagot, may mga nagsasabi. Pero collectively, yung maraming nagsasabi, wala eh. May paisa-isa na kailangan i-impeach yan. Pero it doesn't mean to say, pag sa isang table, 6 sila ng mga congressman, pag may sinabi siyang gano'n, agree yung 5. Hindi naman gano'n. Pero maririnig mo na kailangan nating i-impeach yan.
Congressman, the budget got passed yesterday in 8 days in total. Kayo po ba masaya dun sa naipasa na budget? Meron po kayong mga, sana tinaasan natin to. For example, the defense budget was cut from 200+ billion to 70 billion. What did you think about the budget that was passed?
Okay naman. My only concern was like yung Philippine Coast Guard, sana mas tinaasan natin ang budget because sila yun sa front line dyan sa West Philippine Sea. Mas kailangan ng budget ng Philippine Coast Guard, ng Department of Transportation, dun nga sa Philippine Coast Guard to buy equipment and then mga surveillance, search and rescue also. Pag may mga calamities tayo, sila nakikita natin. I think dapat yung sa Coast Guard mas tinaasan, mas nilakihan ng budget nila yun. Kung may kinatman dito sa isang department, inilipat nila sa DOTR for the Philippine Coast Guard.
And then, Kong Erwin, we're running out of time, but just very quickly, let me circle back to politics. When are you guys planning to submit or file your certificates of candidacy?
Actually, that's a good question. And some are saying na baka sama-sama yung coalition. Pero based on experience, when I was still covering COMELEC, parang isa-isa lang naman mga senator. So kung nagkaganon, then sasabay na lang ako doon sa party list namin, ACT-CIS, which will be on October 6.
Okay, so at this point, likely October 6, but you're not sure yet. Okay.
No.
Okay, abangan namin. Thank you so much for your time tonight. That was House Deputy Majority Leader, Congressman Erwin Tulfo.
Well, we're going to be taking another quick timeout, but up next, heads up, there is a new application process for U.S. visas beginning September 28. The details when we return. Keep it here on One News.
Welcome back. You are still watching The Big Story here on One News. The Embassy of the United States in the Philippines has announced several changes to their visa services. Aside from updates in online and call center systems, a new visa application center is now ready to accommodate applicants. Jovi Francisco was among reporters who were given the tour of the new facility.
Starting September 28, 2024, Filipinos planning to visit America and need their visa processed would have to secure 2 appointment slots. The additional step in the process will be done here at the new Visa Application Center or VAC in Parcal Building, Parañaque City. The VAC will handle the embassy's photo capture and fingerprint scanning services after the applicants accomplish the forms in the online appointment website. Even the online system has been relaunched with more secure and user-friendly interface. One News was part of a media group that was assisted by embassy officials to walk through the new visa application process. The VAC shared the same restrictions and rules as those implemented at the U.S. Embassy in Manila.
All electronic equipment, including cell phones, the vapes, okay, the lighters, and what's that? iPads, laptops will not be allowed here in this security area. So this is also for the safety of all applicants.
The good news is the whole process inside the VAC would only take 10 minutes to finish. The VAC will offer appointment slots from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. weekdays and from 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. on weekends. The other step that applicants will have to book online is the interview schedule at the U.S. Embassy along Roas Boulevard. This is where embassy officials inspect all the submissions and where applicants answer questions about their planned trip to America. Many applicants dread this part of the process, but officials told reporters that the approval rate for non-immigrant visas at this embassy is about 80% and is much higher for immigrant visas.
Do's and don'ts for customers, be honest, be prepared.
The U.S. Embassy in Manila is considered the busiest consular branch in the region, processing more than 200,000 non-immigrant visas just last year, breaching the pre-pandemic figure of 200,000. Hence the need to improve the system.
This is one way that will make our consular operations a little bit more efficient, and we have the intent that because of more efficiencies, we'll be able to just further meet ever-growing consular demand here in the Philippines.
Despite the change in the visa process, the U.S. Embassy also announced that there will be no change in the cost of the visa application. Jovi Francisco, we are One News.
Meanwhile, the Signal Super App has been introduced at this year's APOS conference in Bali, Indonesia. It was Signal TV President and CEO Jane J. Basas who shared the good news to her fellow global media executives. The Signal Super App, powered by Tata Play Binge, is an OTT aggregation platform. What it does is streamline access to movies, shows, and live TV channels from multiple services to a single subscription. This is the first of its kind in the Philippines, meant to address issues on streaming costs and content fragmentation.
And before we go, here is our big picture tonight. Here is President Bongbong Marcos signing into law the Anti-Agricultural Economic Sabotage Act. The new law treats smuggling and hoarding of agricultural food products as economic sabotage when the value of goods exceed 10 million pesos. And also considered economic sabotage under the law are creating cartels, financing smugglers, and hoarders. Violators now face fines and life imprisonment if proven guilty. Agricultural products covered by the law are rice, corn, beef, pork, poultry, garlic, onions, other vegetables, fruit, fish, salt, and other aquatic products in their raw state.
Well, that's great news because
stiffer fines, penalties.
Sends a message, I hope, to the hoarders and to the smugglers. And as we know that the country has been struggling with clamping down on them.
Story ko a while ago. Ami Pamintuan was saying that even with these fines, it's kind of hard to define what is cartelization, if it's a cartelization movement. Kasi baka pwede namang hinuhold nila yung stock muna.
I know that.
Di ba? Yung parang
it's like
technically legal.
It's like China's gray zone strategy.
Oh, yun,
it's technically legal, but technically also the definition of hoarding, right? When you withhold stock supplies, waiting for the price to increase so you could sell it at a higher price, etc., etc.
Sinasabi naman ng customs na tinatagalan daw yung pagbayad ng mga tariffs para hindi ipalabas agad yung ano na yun.
I guess there's delaying tactics as well. So really, it always bills like this, rules and laws like this are always a good start, but it really comes down to enforcement, as what we've seen in the agricultural sector over the several years, right? It's like yes, there are laws to protect against hoarding, smuggling, price gouging, and so on and so forth. Pero how do you enforce that?
Well, I personally believe that public pressure, humiliation is one of the best ways to
name and
get
shame.
justice. Ay, Tulfo yun. Tulfo yun. Tulfo
But
justice.
nobody would tell us the names, remember? Kasi there's such big players,
for example,
apparently.
Alice Go. Nakuha sa ano.
Yeah, but nobody wants to name the hoarders, right? And the smugglers. Kasi they would go up against
Why are they
really
afraid?
powerful
Yeah.
people, sabi ni former Senator Kiko Pangilinan, right? That's been his advocacy.
Well, hopefully that's a step in the right direction for us here in the Philippines. But on that note, that's the show tonight.
Well, more Tulfos. We might see more of that. Who knows?
The name
We'll
and
see.
shame.
We are One News, all science, all the time.
Thanks for tuning in. Have a good night.